Gospel of Matthew. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. After he had dismissed them, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning he came walking towards them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost!" and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he noticed a strong wind, he became frightened, and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me!" Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God."
I am sitting at my home in Brentor, listening to the bird's song, thinking how lucky we are to be living in this wonderful rural setting. There are no aeroplanes flying overhead to draw white lines across the sky, and you can hear the lambs bleating and the breeze rustling the leaves. Good evening to you all listening to our reading from Matthew's Gospel this evening. I'm not a natural storyteller, and I struggle to make anything I write simple or clear. However, I really enjoy listening to a good story, and the tale of Peter's failure to walk on the water is particularly appealing. Peter is a simple fisherman who was introduced to Jesus by his brother Andrew. He was very human, very frail, and very fallible as a follower of Jesus, much the same as us. Yet he was to become the rock on which the church was to be founded. The story follows on from our remembering of the miraculous feeding of the 5,000, people who had followed Jesus to the deserted place where he had intended to be quiet and to be alone. After everyone has been fed, Jesus made the disciples sail on, get back onto their boat, and sail on across the Sea of Galilee. We have to imagine how he managed to dismiss the crowd, but going up a mountain evidently didn't appeal to the hordes of men, women and children who had gathered around him. So Jesus had to climb a mountain to be alone and to say his prayers. Peter and his disciples had sailed off across the sea and had been hit by a fierce and terrible storm. We should remember that although the Sea of Galilee is normally calm and peaceful, I have been told that it is also subject to violent katabatic winds, which suddenly strike as the temperature drops in the evening. If I'd been in Peter's shoes, struggling to keep afloat in the turbulent sea, I would have been terrified to see Jesus walking towards me across the water. I don't believe in ghosts, but I would be shocked, to say the very least. It is Jesus who stays calm. And he says three things. Take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid. Peter, who never gets it right first time, asks Jesus to prove he is who he says he is. And Jesus simply says, come. Peter did as he was told and stepped out of the boat and walked towards Jesus. Can we imagine walking on water? I love the water. And I really enjoy my wild swimming in the wildest places I can find. Or I did until I was struck with hypothermia last summer. I would never imagine that I could walk on water. It was inevitable that Peter would get into difficulties, and Jesus reached out his hand, the hand that threw stars into space, and he caught him. This is what Jesus does. He rescues us because he loves us. We are now in the turbulent sea of the corona pandemic. We don't know what is going to come next or how it will end. We have to take heart, have faith, and not be afraid. For it will end, and we will be able to open our doors and go outside. Offer your hand to Jesus and let him lead you to a place of safety. And as the Queen said in her thought-provoking speech to the nation, we will meet again with our families and our friends. Amen.